Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is the first lecture of our course إدارة المنظمات الحكومية in English Managing State Organizations. It's known in literature and in textbooks courses as public administration, as we see here. So we'll use the PA or the public administration term for our course inshallah as synonym to إدارة المنظمات الحكومية. Textbook we are using in our course is for Michael Lemay. The title of the textbook is Public Administration, Clashing Values in the Administration of Public Policy. Public Administration, Clashing Values in the Administration of Public Policy. We will study inshallah 6 chapters. Chapter 1, as we see it here, balancing values in the administration of public policy. The main objective of this video inshallah is to provide an overview of the whole course, all the chapters we will study inshallah, main topics of each chapter. So chapter 1, again, balancing values in the administration of public policy. You see here we have values in chapter 1, and if we go back to the title of our textbook, we will see clashing values. The thing is that our course inshallah will follow the values perspective اللي هي منظور القيم in studying إدارة المنظمات الحكومية أو public administration أو state organizations. يعني by value احنا we mean in we manage an organization based on some value we have. So we may have emphasis on public versus private ownership. We may concentrate in some time on a responsiveness value against efficiency value, democracy, dictatorship. Each one of these are values and they may clash, they swing, يعني هم بيتبدلوا وبيتعارضوا مع بعض. Why we are using values? Because in governments, in state organizations, we usually look for managing organizations for the best interest of people, الشعب. They are state ones, and we are governed here by what people demands, and what people demands can be abstracted or summarized, يعني يتلخص in value. Specific value can affect them. Chapter 1 احنا we have an introduction in which we will as a classical introduction for any course احنا we usually talk about what the main meaning of the title of the course, why it is important. So we give something about the significance, يعني we give reasons why are we studying this, why important for accountants like you inshallah, يعني. And then we will talk about the values. What does it mean? We will give a definition for a value and how they clash. We may have a value in a specific period of time, and then we switch to another one. That's what happens in public administration policy. Then in the study of public administration, we will give here overview of terms, bits and pieces of buzzing issues in public administration, what democracy mean, what bureaucracy mean, human rights, and all these that affect managing state organization in this part of the chapter. Then we will talk about the structure of government in an executive branch. You know, of course, that we have this classical structure of any state اللي هي سلطة تشريعية وسلطة قضائية وسلطة تنفيذية. So we don't have only the executive branch اللي هو التنفيذي. We have judicial اللي هو التشريعية. أنا آسف القضائية. And we have legislative اللي هي التشريعية one. We will give a structure and we will discuss how this structure affect values. How agencies are formed under this structure. And then the last part of the chapter we will talk about the history. How approaches of studying public administration evolved. How they turn from one school to another, one orientation or one direction to another. That will be chapter 1, which is introduction in general. Chapter 2, we will introduce system thinking. How system thinking could be employed in studying public administration. Actually, chapter 2 and 3 together, we will utilize the system thinking, what a system means. And then, you know, in systems we have outer context and internal context, or external one and internal one. Chapter 2 will deal with the external context. طبعا الخارجي ده في حاجات اجتماعية وسياسية واقتصادية. So we will have the social, political, economic environment. This is the external one. So social, political, economic and environmental context of administration. We will start with an introduction that talks again about how external values affect managing a state organization اللي هي منظمة حكومية يعني. وبعدين we will give ال portrait or ال diagram or ال figure الصورة يعني بتاعت السيستم of the system اللي هي هنسميها هنا الايه ال administrative agencies in the political system. You remember that so we have input, processing, output, and we have the environment. So we will give these blocks the functional components of a system, and we see how this may work in a state organization, what inputs might mean, what processing might have, and outputs may look like. Okay. And the main concentration will be on those components اللي هم outer ones or external ones, and how they affect these inputs, processing, outputs. How values are shaped in the outside, social values, political values, economic values, and how they affect the inputs, and then they affect the processing, and then the output. And the main thing is the change. You know, احنا ال textbook title is about clashing values. How values clash. So they change from one side to another side. And how they conflict in managing a specific state organization. Big part of this chapter هيتكلم عن السياسة political context. So we will talk about the party system اللي هي الأحزاب and how they are formed and their platforms and values and so on, their role when they take over elections and so on, the role of parties and value sources. Also interest groups اللي هي الجماعات النشطة وكده in politics, and how they form and affect and create values for managing state organizations. And then after discussions of politics matters, we will introduce the economic context اللي هو another external context of managing state organization. And then in the end we will talk about technology and ecology. Ecology اللي هو natural environment and how they affect managing a state organization. That would be chapter 2, which will introduce for the first time system thinking. System thinking will continue in chapter 3 after that, but from internal perspective. ده هو السيستم من جوه بقى. A chapter هنا called the anatomy of public organization, bureaucratic power and politics. Politics, this is internal politics. And power اللي هو النفوذ الداخلي and so on. After an introduction of explaining what do we mean by internal, we will introduce and discuss sources of internal values. اهمها طبعا الكالتشر هنا، حاجه اسمها الايديولوجي. It's part of the culture actually. uh, the deep beliefs of what is right for something. This is the ideology. Bureaucracy also as well as an important internal source. Bureaucratic ideology together, which is the ideology employed in bureaucracies. Bureaucracy اللي هي البيروقراطية يعني, which is an important term for governments, governmental agencies and organizations. Also, the internal side of managing a public organization is what is called هنا cognitive processes. cognitive processes يعني طريقة التفكير والشغل المعرفي. cognitive processes, how people think, how they understand the world around them, the memory work. Of course it's not individual one, collective one. يعني الفكر الجمعي بتاع المنظمات الحكومية بيبقى شكله عامل ازاي، بيفكروا ازاي. Then we will talk about the power اللي هو نفوذ, how bureaucratic power affect creating values. How structure, how organizational structure create values. يعني لو هي organizational structure that tend to be or emphasize centralization, how this may create centralized or centralization values, or if it is decentralization, which is more like democratic shape or structure, how these affect managing organizations. And then another important part in state organization, you may find موظفين عاديين يعني زي bureaucrats, okay, and other ones that come by elections اللي هم politicians. يعني حد يكسب الانتخابات يبقى وزير, then he or she became a public figure working in a state organization, but he or she is a politician. Those people have their own values, and those one has values as well. And in the end, we will sum up with introducing other all internal sources we studied, and then adding bits and pieces of the internal values. Chapter 2 and 3, one of يعني main two chapters in our course, and have lots of philosophy that need to be studied in. Chapter 4 is a quick, easy one. It's about the structure of the government, خاصة الجانب التنفيذي, الحكومة شكلها عامل ازاي. So we will introduce the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and executive branch اللي هي التشريعي, القضائي, والتنفيذي. التنفيذي has مؤسسة الرئاسة اللي هي elected president and all authorities that work and support and supervise this part. الكابينت اللي هي الوزارة, and الكونسل والمينستريز والكوميتيز, السنترال ادفايزري ايجنسيز, مركز المحاسبات والتنظيم والإدارة and so on. local government ده بقى الحكم المحلي بقى, اللي هو الgovernorates والdistricts والcities والvillages and so on. All this has its own structure. And then in the end we will talk briefly about the public sector اللي هي economic units that is owned by the government, يعني how public sector and public authorities are managed, and their main problems and main advantages for managing government. That's chapter 4. Chapter 5, after that we will go back on the theories we studied in year 1 in our study in the Faculty of Commerce عن نظريات الإدارة, theories of organizational behavior. You remember these theories احنا we studied Frederick Taylor وAdam Smith وHenry Fayol theories. We will have the classical theories we studied, and how such theories create values, again the term value, for studying and managing state organizations. Then we have another school, another movement in management. It's called human relations school. اللي هي مدرسة العلاقات الإنسانية. المين authors, المين theorists for this are فوليت، تشستر برنارد، إلتون مايو. طبعا إلتون مايو أشهرهم. أبراهام مازلو، يسمى أبراهام مازلو بتاع مثلث الاحتياجات ده، وال needs pyramid. Douglas McGruger, and so on. Then we have new classical school theories that try to combine the best of both worlds, like Golick, Herbert Simon, Philip Selznick, and so on. That would be chapter 5. Chapter 6, the last chapter we have, will introduce decision making. Remember, decision making, we have theories for decision making, and how using specific decision making approach create values for managing a state organization. طبعا we will start with the rational comprehensive model. فاكرين الراشنال ده اللي هو when we make a decision we go through specific stages. Stage 1, define the problem. Stage 2, create alternatives. Stage 3, study alternatives. 4, select and then implement. This is the rational way, but it doesn't work that way, so we have other alternative for them. We have bargaining model, incremental model, participative model, and so on. In making decisions, ethics affect what course of actions we may choose. So we will talk a little bit about ethics. Ethics معناها هنا الأخلاق, what is right and what is wrong. So there are rules and values cultivated, مزروعة in our minds as individuals. تربينا بيها يعني وتعلمناها من المدرسة وكده. So they affect that. There are ethics that are جمعية يعني جمعي, institutional ones, and there are individuals and personal ones. Other limits of decision making will be studied in chapter 6. So in our course we will have inshallah those 6 chapters. I hope you enjoy the course inshallah. شكرا.